Call the meeting to order. Got my agenda. No real mayor's comments tonight. The end of between Dan and Brittany, we didn't have a city hall tour today, so some of you guys might want to update that, but let's get right into the Main Street Bridge report. Calhoun Burns, and John, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. So we want to talk about the Main Street Bridge some more. So it's been going on for a little while on our discussions, and Calhoun Burns and Associates, you know, they've been the city's structural engineer on bridges for quite a while. And they did, the city retained them. They did do a study on the Main Street Bridge as well as the Gilbert Street Bridge. And because the Main Street Bridge is on the historic register, that study was taken to the Historic Preservation Commission. And the Preservation Commission, the report was presented to them, and they then, the commission voted unanimously and asking the council to give more in-depth study on preserving the bridge rather than demolishing it and putting in a new bridge. And that's when last year, actually almost a year ago at this time, the council approved a supplemental agreement with Calhoun Burns to actually do that, to study the bridge, to study rehabilitating the bridge, keeping the existing structure in place instead of a new bridge, and what that would entail, the costs involved in the future maintenance on keeping the old bridge. And what we have tonight in front of you is the draft report, and all we want to do is present this to you. We want this to come before the council as a draft so that we can get your input, feedback, so that it can go back, Calhoun Burns can finalize it, so that you don't see it as a final.
Join the meeting.
So what I want to do next is provide Lowell Miller with Calhoun Burns. He wants to go through give a summary of the report, so I'll let Lowell take it from here.
I just got a text from Kristen, she's the 515 number.
Oh,
Kristen,
okay,
I
that
don't know
was.
who 319 is, but Kristen's 515.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Lowell.
All right.
Hi, all.
right. Are you still there?
Yes.
Okay, something just changed on my screen here suddenly. So, thanks, John, for that introduction. And like John said, we've done quite a bit of work based on the council's direction, since the last time we met. All right, that I did a little presentation to the city council. I'm going to share my screen here. Can everyone see that kind of aerial map?
Not yet, but it's
Now
coming.
we do.
There we go.
Okay, so everything I'm going to be, what I have open here is this report, the draft report that John was talking about. So I'm not presenting any new slides. Everything is already in front of you, but obviously this is 218-page report now with all the additional testing. So just going to be kind of jumping around here a little bit and kind of trying to kind of show you some of the highlights of what kind of what we're doing here. So this here, the drawing I'm showing you here, just kind of an aerial, just so we can kind of keep track of where.
Lowell, your map went away.
Does that come back then?
There it is.
Okay, sorry about that. Kind of switching screens around here. So this is an aerial map of the downtown area. This purple box kind of encompasses where the current bridge is. The direction to your right is to what I call the north. It'd be downtown area on the right side of the page. The courthouse and stuff would be down here, just off the corner down to here. So that kind of gives you kind of a general idea of where we're at. So one of the first things we did was we had Collins Engineering. They're the ones that specialize in underwater inspections with dive teams. So they sent a dive team up here to do an underwater inspection. part of their work was they looked at the dam structure that's just upstream of the Main Street Bridge there. That structure is in, I would call it, in fair to good condition. They did not find any signs of undermining of the dam. General concrete deterioration from being, over 100 years old, but nothing of major safety concern or anything there. The other thing they looked at was here, kind of where we're showing here in this red box, is that concrete flume that we talked about last time. There's a set of gates up here by the dam that is designed to let water out this flume, then outlet downstream of the Main Street Bridge. I would say that flume structure is probably in worse condition than probably what we imagined. They actually, while they were there with their diving equipment, they actually had oxygen and stuff like that, so they could easily get inside those confined spaces and get through there. They found pretty significant holes in the floor of that structure. Portions of the wall were there's quite a bit of the wall missing in areas. You can refer to Appendix D of our report includes their full inspection of all these things that I'm talking about. They have quite a few pictures in there. I think with the limited time I have, I'm not going to try to dig into and try to get quite that detail in there, but that flume is in pretty poor condition, and we are recommending that. I think that area is kind of used for fishing and stuff like that. We're getting to the point where we're concerned that that thing could actually start shifting, especially during, even moderately high flows and things like that. It's getting to the point where, from a safety perspective, it's time to close that flume off to get the pedestrians and stuff off there, because we are starting to get concerned that thing could shift and start moving on you just from the flows of the river. The other thing they looked at was, while we had them there, we said, let's look at the bridge foundations as well. The bridge we're pretty confident is founded on some limestone bedrock. The bedrock around the foundations was still solid. We didn't see any undermining of the foundations, which is a good sign. Obviously there's quite a turbulent water there from the Lowhead Dam, so that was good that they found that. But yeah, I mean, they did also note just general concrete deterioration of the bridge foundations, similar to kind of what we're seeing, above the water line. The other piece of this that we had involved was American Engineering Testing. They went out and they took some core samples. They drilled some various holes in the bridge to do some high-tech testing. And I guess I would classify their test results kind of as expected for 115-year-old concrete. Back when this bridge was built, most of that concrete would have been mixed on site. That's before the days of ready mixed trucks. So a lot of stuff got mixed on site. So you see, uneven distribution of aggregates, cement not fully mixed, which is just what you'd expect. So I'm not saying trying to say it's bad concrete. I'm just saying it's consistent with what would have been there, and not the same. Wouldn't meet the criteria of today as far as how well that's mixed. And part of that too leads to variability of the concrete throughout the bridge. And they were finding some chemical issues, as far as what happens with concrete is, it takes on some exterior chemicals over time. That exterior chemicals, kind of reacts with some of the concrete, with the cement and stuff within the concrete, which eventually leads to corrosion of the underlying reinforcing. That reinforcing, then when it starts corroding, that corroded state of the reinforcing takes up more volume. That's what causes the concrete to spall off the bridge. As everybody's aware, in the inspection report, there's plenty of documentation of concrete spalling throughout the bridge, which is just kind of the natural aging of the concrete. And that stuff just happens at random locations. And like I said, the variability of the mix contributes more to the variability of where some of that spalling can occur. The Appendix A is our inspection report, which included, we also did more of a hands-on and a snooper inspection of this thing, where we actually had a man basket swinging over the sides under this bridge. And there's all kinds of documentation in there regarding the kind of the general condition and deterioration of the bridge. And you'll see all kinds of you'll see examples of what we're talking about here on that. Okay, does anybody have any questions? I'm going to move on to like on the rehab option. If anybody has any kind of questions on the existing condition.
No, it was, I think the team that did this did a very nice, thorough job, and it was eye-opening of the deterioration of the flume. When we met last year, we thought it was, not safe, and the inspection proved our thought from last year, and just concurrence that really the access to that needs to be shut down immediately. One, based off tonight, we know about it. We thought about it last year. We know for a fact that it is now. So we should take some action to remedy that access to that. As you mentioned, it could shift at any time on that. The underneath part of the mill race there is also of concern. What was your thought of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Yes, it's not in great shape by any means. I fully agree with that. Having the occasional person out there, and I'm not too concerned about it in its current condition. My thoughts would be, if you have whatever, a city festival, RAGBRAI coming through town, something where you might have a large groups of people conjugating, especially in that general area. Those would be the times I'd be saying, let's get that thing fenced off and not allowing that to occur in that specific area. Okay. I'm not too concerned about that shifting suddenly, but I don't think you want to overload it either.
Correct.
They do our inspection a couple of years ago. Are they the ones that do our regular inspection?
Yes.
So from the inspection you did a couple of years ago, just as a regular inspection, has there been substantial deterioration since that time, or what's the comparison of now and then?
Yeah, this flour mill foundation is a little bit of an odd duck because it's really not part of the bridge. So we're not necessarily doing a full documentation on that. I think, there's been times where when we had a boat, as part of our normal inspections, bridge inspections, we do not inspect that. We had a team up there to do some probing. We had a boat up there, and the guys literally pulled in there trying to get out of the currents. And, obviously they saw the amount of deterioration in there, and that's when they kind of brought it to my attention, and obviously took some photos and stuff to kind of document what was going on in there. But our intentions have never been to do a full hands-on inspection of that type of structure. So I don't have a lot of historical information as far as how that thing's continuing to deteriorate.
Okay.
But I will tell you what I call the east side is kind of that bridge wing. That's the area that we've been kind of monitoring. I think 5+ years ago, I know we've done some patching. There've been various rounds of patching on there. There's a bunch of masonry within that area that continues to shift and move. I mean, basically can't hold patching on it because it's just continuing to move and shift on us. I think it's part of a rehabilitation that whole corner needs to be rebuilt, which would include elimination of that flour mill foundation.
So just so I understand, between the flume and the mill race park, the larger, more immediate concern for safety would be the flume, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's what I'm talking about. That'd be the more immediate concern, because only just under, a couple feet of flow of water or something like that, that thing could lose enough limestone, and based on how poor condition is, something could shift without, in the middle of the night without anybody knowing about it.
Okay.
as opposed to the mill flower park there. Um, yeah, something on that east side could shift and stuff like that, but I think the probability of that is much lower than the flume side of things.
Okay.
Okay, so so we were asked to kind of look at, you know, a rehab and much more in-depth view of this. So this is, I'm shifting to Appendix G. There's 2 pages within this. This is page 2 of that appendix. So this is a picture kind of standing, you can see the flume here where this lady's sitting to fish. You're seeing the flour mill foundation here at this corner, downtown's up here to the north. So I'm kind of looking northeast here. So this kind of give you an idea of what we're going to, what we would do for a rehabilitation piece. You know, rehabilitation on the top surface up here, the driving surface, the existing pavement would be removed, sidewalk would be removed, this fence would be removed. This fascia wall that I got shaded here, kind of this light pink color for the full length of this thing, that full wall, you know, we have that well documented in our inspection stuff and all the photos we have in there. That wall is in poor condition. There's extensive cracking on it. It appears to be shifting and moving with, you know, changes in you know, seasonal changes, and just from the earth that's trying to retain behind here. In addition to that, you know, you can see these bald areas between the arch and that wall. There's plenty of places where you can stick a probe rod, you know, a foot or so into there. There's areas where when we did that foam injection about 5+ years ago, I mean, foam was just coming out through the side of that joint. So our feeling is this entire pink area would need to come off to get that, and that would include, we talked about the flour mill foundation and that whole north, and that whole wing area in there would need to come off. Quite honestly, the wings at all 4 corners are in poor shape, so pretty much all 4 corners would be kind of stripped down. So basically what you'd be left with, and when we started this rehab, would be the, you know, the foundations themselves and the arch spans across here. So once all the earth is removed, all that concrete's removed, we'd be down to the structure, to the arch spans itself. That would, you know, keep in mind the top of these arches have not seen the light of day since 1910. We have no idea what the conditions of those arches are. Generally speaking, they're kind of covered with soil. We wouldn't expect them to be in horrible shape, but I mean, you don't know. We don't know what we don't know until everything's exposed. And that's one of the real challenges about doing a rehab, is there's going to be a lot of things that are unknown until the demolition's done. And at that point, you know, you're kind of at a point of no return to kind of proceed with the project. But once that's done, so once you're down to that area, you'd be down to patching the underside of the arches, top sides of the arches. Now keep in mind, you know, with this patching type stuff here, the contractor's going to have to build some sort of scaffolding or something, some sort of structure out here to work off. You know, these guys literally got to run jackhammers over their head to remove concrete so we can get the bottom side of those arches patched up. So it's a pretty major undertaking to do that patching. You know, obviously they're going to block off a portion of the river. They're going to build cofferdams around the piers so they can get down there below water line to do, you know, all patching and all that type of work in relatively dry conditions, as well as the overhead stuff. You know, anything that's on the top side would also need to be patched as well. So yeah, there are obviously significant costs involved with diverting the river, scaffolding, you know, all that stuff, besides just the cost of doing the patch work itself. Then I'm going to shift up one page which is this still in Appendix G. This is kind of a schematic. This is basically like if you're taking a knife, cutting the bridge in half transverse to the roadway, and kind of what that section would look like there. So this left side is kind of what we're showing here. We're kind of showing this light dash line here. It's kind of the existing roadway, the existing sidewalk, that existing wall and fence along the edge. All that stuff in dashed lines would be removed. Then on the right-hand side of the sheet, which kind of shows what we would propose to do. Like I said, we're converting this from a earth-filled arch to what we refer to as an open spandrel arch, which means we're building a series of walls kind of transverse to the roadway here to support a structural slab that goes above that. That structural slab would cantilever over the side of the bridge a little bit to give us the adequate width that we would need to, to meet current criteria for lane widths, sidewalk trail widths, and those type of things. So it's not, so the edge would look somewhat different because we're cantilevering something over the side where that just currently is not the current situation there. Like I mentioned, I mean, there's gonna be significant removals on this. And one thing that until we start presenting this to the DOT and to the State Historical Preservation Office, I don't know what their position is going to be. Since we're doing so much removals and stuff on this, it would be up to SHPO to decide. So back up, SHPO, I'm referring to the State Historical Preservation Office as SHPO. It would be their decision whether we're doing enough modifications of this that they would still consider it. They may still consider it an adverse effect to an historic property because we're modifying so much to this structure. But that is a decision that they would make. It's not something that they ask my opinion on. That'd be their decision. So that's kind of the scope of what a rehab type project would look like. Before I kind of get into the cost side of things, a couple other little things to think about. These, probably minor in the grand scheme of things, but what happens is when we do what we refer to this open spandrel, there's literally manholes that are put into this deck. So when we do inspections, our inspectors have to crawl inside the structure to, be able to review the structural side of this. That is what we refer to as a confined space inspection. So that requires, there's additional costs associated with inspections just because there's special equipment you got to have for air quality monitoring and extra staff on site to ensure safety of the inspectors to meet OSHA requirements, meet the safety requirements for inspectors. Besides that, as far as the normal inspections, we expect super inspections to be occurring, slightly more frequently for a rehab type structure, just to monitor the condition as opposed to a new bridge. And as far as underwater inspection, I know that I think this inspection of that dam has been kind of the first one's been done for quite a few years. But we'd be recommended a 6-year interval on doing underwater inspection of the dam and the bridge and stuff. Kind of repeat what we've done here, but get that onto a 6-year frequency. Does anybody have any questions on kind of what the concept of the rehab is before I kind of move on to the cost side of things?
Just, you mentioned the historical society though, but at the end of the day, I mean, the historical society, what role do they play? I guess that's my question, because at the end of the day, whose decision does it rest with for alternate one or option 1 through 5?
That's a good question, and okay. Some of the next steps I would anticipate, I guess I'm going under the assumption that some sort of federal dollars will be used to construct either a rehab or a replacement structure. At that point, the Iowa DOT Location Environments Bureau gets involved. They would be sent a copy of this report, minutes and stuff from various council meetings, things like that, noting that these has been discussed in public forums and people are aware of that. Location and environment they're the ones that would actually coordinate with SHPO at that point. Now, even if there's an adverse effect, it's not saying you can't do the project, but that would say that the bridge may be taken off the historical list if they consider it an adverse effect and the bridge is no longer historical. I mean, that's a decision SHPO would make. And there'd be some additional coordination that has to be done if they classify it as an adverse effect.
Okay, so with what you presented, the DOT, you can correct me if I'm wrong, John, but the DOT would have some sort of funding mechanism for this, correct?
There are funding sources. Is that what you're asking?
Okay. The other thing that caught my attention was just the two main pieces that really hold that bridge up have never seen the light of day since 1915. So what I've come to realize, and I think my peers on council and staff have realized, anytime we get in the overhead or dig in the ground, we always find something very interesting that drives the price tag up. So I looked at this one based on your comments. There's a lot of unknowns just based off what you presented. I think that's a fair assessment, correct?
Well, my take on that would be, the plans we have from original construction are a one-page sheet. And there's a lot of things on that sheet that I don't think really match up perfectly well with what's actually got built. So yes, there's going to be unknowns. I mean, once they get this thing stripped down, and we can actually see what's there physically, there's no question in my mind, the plans are most likely going to have to be modified, and how does that affect scope of work for the contractor? I don't know until the demo's done.
Okay.
And that's kind of part of my point is, once you've done the demo, you're kind of committed, because if you decide to change your mind after demo is done, you're going to have a bridge that's closed for multiple years, until you go back through all the permitting process, and letting process and find funds and everything else for an alternate design.
Thank you.
So, I mean, I'm not trying to say rehab's bad. But there's baggage that comes with it. And I want you as a council to be able to make an informed decision.
That's
I
exactly
have a
right. Thank you.
question. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Marissa.
Thanks. My question is, would there be an environmental impact to the river? And if so, could we mitigate any environmental concerns to that waterway?
Yes, as part of, I kind of mentioned the location environment, as relation to the historical aspects of that, but they also review things from the environmental side. There's what we refer to as a determination of effects form. That's when we get environmentalists involved, look for endangered species, address concerns with the DNR regarding paddling routes. There's all kinds of different kind of reports and stuff that go into that would be kind of part of the next phase of this project. Does that answer your question? I'm not
I
hearing a
have too many
response.
darn buttons to push. Yep. Can you hear me? Yes, it does answer my question. Thanks. I have one
Yeah.
more while I have the floor.
Yep. But to expand that a little bit more, is there, no matter what we do, rehab or replacement, there's going to have to be work done in the river. There's just no way around that. It has to be done within the river.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, you talked about the slab of the flour mill needing to be removed.
Yes.
I'm not recalling, but to the east of that is a park, Race Mill Park. Would that be affected also?
That we refer to the Rose Park.
Yes.
Yes, there's definitely going to be some impacts there. There's nothing that can't probably be restored at the completion of the project. You know, some of the next phases too would be, we'd be getting survey and stuff like that. And then where we do the type size and we refer to the type size and location of the bridge. And that's where kind of the impact would be, kind of finalized, and we kind of know what the full impact of that park would be.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll kind of move on here. So I'm going to, this is page 8 of the actual report there at the beginning of that PDF that you guys should have. The patching that's on that bridge currently is about 28 years old. In my opinion, that's kind of well outlast. We're kind of well past its service life. That patching should have been redone, probably 5 years ago. And, my opinion is going to be that each round of patching is going to get a little bit shorter just as as base concrete continues to age. So for our work here, what we did is we considered a major rehabilitation. We're talking that being done here in the short term. So we have some good cost data on another project that we converted to open spandrel. I was able to ratio some costs and quantities, and based on that, and I feel pretty good on the kind of the cost we've come up with that. So for major rehabilitation, we used 14.1 million. I did include a little higher contingency on the rehab versus replacement, just to kind of help try to account for some of the unknowns that occur to this. So then in this highlighted area, I assume that probably in 20 years, we're going to go back and redo all the concrete patching, because all that's going to be deteriorated. Those areas will grow somewhat from what the original patching round was, because that's just kind of the nature of the beast, is that the patches continue, size of patches continue to grow, more areas develop over time. So then we said after that round of patching is about 15 years old, we're going to assume that's kind of the end of life of that rehab. So if you take the total cost of those two pieces and just divide it by the 35 years of estimated life, that comes out to that $463,000 per year. Sliding down to the page right below that we did a similar cost opinion of the new bridge. So current cost estimate is 12.5 million. We said, okay, in about 35 years, you might start seeing some patching on the wearing surface, and we're going to assume that you got to put a PC overlay on there. So we had about another 1.8 million. And then we said when the bridge hits 65 years life, we're going to say end of life, which gives you about 220,000 per year. Estimated life on both options are probably on the conservative side, but I think the ratioing of what I'm doing is going to be similar if we want to be a little more unconservative on both years life. But I think when you look at those 2 years life, the cost per year based on the estimated life, and you're seeing a factor of 2 to 1. Me as from the engineering side perspective, when I see that larger difference in costs, and I'm also seeing, the amount of bridge that we're actually able to save here and how much we're going to change the site just to do the rehabilitation. My final conclusion and recommendation was proceed with alternate 5, which is the replacement alternate. So that's kind of the quick rundown of a 218-page report. I assume you guys don't want to stay here for a couple hours and go into extreme depth.
I do have some questions on the cost, if you have
Sure.
The 14 million kind of, our objective here, this is a draft report, and this is our opportunity to ask questions. I'm assuming to get to a final report, we get a final report, we make a decision which way we would like to go. Obviously, we have DOT, we have other entities that are gonna have some play in it. But in order to get to that final report, for me as a council member to make a decision on, I'm concerned on your cost estimate. So I'll give you a good example. The Waverly, the Bremer Avenue Bridge at Waverly. That bridge is, I think, actually longer than the Main Street Bridge here in Charles City, but the price tag for that was 5.8 million. I understand they probably didn't have a flume to take out. They didn't have the sawmill thing to take out. The city is responsible for any of the aesthetics, but to me, that's a large difference of 5.8 million to 12 million with a 2 million contingency. Can you expand upon that?
Oh, like I said, I'm not specifically familiar with the bridge, so I can't do a comparison of that. You know, all I'm going to say is, you know, we do extensive work across the state of Iowa. You know, we have a pretty good pulse of where we're at. You know, I'm trying to include some inflationary factor, knowing this project's going to be a year or two down the road type thing, and not trying to undercut that. So, if you want me to specifically look at a specific bridge for comparison purposes, I'd have to look into that deeper and get back to you on that.
I would appreciate that, because we as a council are gonna get tasked to say, do we prefer alternate 1 through alternate 5? But if I don't feel comfortable with the costing data within the alternates, how can I make an informed decision? To me, it's just too big of an aggregate between 5.8 million and 12 to 14 million. To me, it's a span bridge. It has the 2 center pieces. It's actually, I think what I looked at compared to ours, it's actually longer. So I'm not seeing why we would have a $7 to $8 million difference, I guess. And I understand there would be some added cost because we have some uniqueness with some flumes and other stuff. They're gonna add, you know, 1 to 2 million to it. Dang, $7 to $8 million difference. That's, I'd like some more information off that.
And although, Patrick, but they are 2 different bridges.
Sure.
You know, this was. Waverly, it's a steel bridge.
Pardon?
Waverly is a steel bridge.
I
You know,
know.
beam, a steel beams. This is, you know, our bridge is a concrete earth filled.
What would the new bridge be?
What?
What would the new bridge be?
A new bridge,
Still, correct?
No, we're talking about a pre-stress here.
The same,
I guess,
same,
do you know off the top of your head on that Waverly Bridge, how was that 4 lanes, 2 lanes? How many lanes of traffic do they have on there?
4.
4 lane?
4.
Is it 4?
Well, it's 3 now because they're 3 lane, but it's the same width, obviously.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't know enough about that detail. I can't speak direct comparison there. You know, I feel like we're in the ballpark. You know, when you guys are applying for grants, you know, if you're going for, you know, I've been talking with John about, you know, there's various counties and cities that are receiving some like raise type grants and stuff from the feds. You know, we don't want to be low. This is kind of a two-edged sword. I don't want to be low at this point, and then you guys go out for a request for a grant, and then come in 2 million. Then the project comes in $2 million over. I'd rather be a little fat on my numbers, and if I'm going to be fat on one side, I'm trying to be, as far as comparing the 2 options, trying to be equally fat on both sides. I'm not trying to skew the numbers one towards the other.
No, I understand that. I would actually like you to take this is a draft version. I'd like to have just another look at what the cost is. Is it truly 12 to 14 million, or are we putting in an extra 2 to 3 million for contingency where, you know, need to make a decision off of this, and I can't make a decision how soft are these numbers?
Yeah, I mean, and part of the issue with this too is, you're talking about what's happening in 2 years. I mean, when we originally put this report together, we were in a time of about 10 to 15% inflationary rates on heavy construction. That stuff that's kind of flattened off. But you look at the historical stuff, and then it seems like we get a 2 or 3 year period of flat, and then all of a sudden something happens in the world, and construction costs start inflating by 10 to 15%. Uh, when you start talking, 10% on a $10 million budget, I mean, that's $1 million a year that you can eat up in inflation pretty fast. So, I can give you a really low number if you want, then go for a grant and then come in $2 million short. I don't want to come back to you guys after a letting and go, oh, you're $2 million short. You got to come up with a bunch of local money to fund this either.
Okay, I'm simply asking for another look at the numbers.
Yep. Yeah, John, if you can give me a little more specific information on where that location is on that bridge, I can definitely pull those bid tabs out and take a look at that.
Okay.
And like John, you mentioned, maybe a totally different type of bridge. Well, we're talking, are we talking to try to replicate structurally, aesthetically what we have with the arches? Or are we just going for a basic bridge?
You mean between the discussion between Waverly and here, or just?
Just in, what kind of bridge, the historical society will say, well, if we're gonna build a new bridge, we want to have some reminiscence of the old bridge. So are we gonna build that in? I mean, well, are your figures for just a basic bridge, or are they for like a higher cost bridge?
What we completed within the inspection report was a beam bridge, be similar to probably what, I know the Charlie Western Bridge was not a vehicular bridge, but it'd be a similar type structure with pre-stressed beams and concrete piers and stuff. Under basic aesthetic stuff, I was thinking, within the fencing details or things of that nature, or light fixtures, some of that type stuff, you could try to be reminiscent of the existing bridge. But I mean, if you want a true kind of a signature bridge, I mean, you can look at like that with the DOT bridge Iowa DOT did down in Iowa Falls. Something like that could cost you 4 times what a standard beam bridge would. So if you start talking signature bridge, I mean, sky is the limit as far as how much money you want to spend on something like that. To go back to say we're going to try to replicate this like an arch type bridge, I think, last time we had some discussions that, the existing bridge creates about 1.7 feet of backwater, which does not meet DNR criteria. So in this case, where we're talking about a rehab situation, as long as we're just patching it back to the original surface, the DNR will consider it kind of a maintenance type thing and allow the existing bridge to stay in place. But as soon as I start changing that structure or changing like the width of the pier or anything like that, the DNR is going to come back and say, you need a permit from us. You have to meet the current day criteria for that. So, attempting to do an arch bridge as a replacement structure, you'd be talking about, it'd be very, very challenging to get through the permitting process. I'll just put it that way. And may not be possible without doing some major modification of the river opening or something like that.
The PPCB, the precast concrete bridge structure, is that more similar to what we have, like the Branningham Bridge, or is that?
The
something
Branningham
different?
Bridge, it's not precast,
Okay,
it's steel. The Charlie Western Bridge,
that's the precast.
the concrete beams that's supporting the structure, that's precast.
So that's the difference in what we're looking at and how that would visually look if it was the new construction. And that could potentially be a difference in cost with other bridges that are being built in the area, correct? I would assume.
Yes.
For this, I'm sorry, John, I missed that.
Go ahead, Lowell.
Yeah, I mean, as far as what we're building in Iowa for the span lengths we're talking about, the pre-stress bridge, the PVCB stands for pre-tension, pre-stressed concrete beams. That type of beam for span lengths we're talking about is the most economical in Iowa. Yes, generally steel is more costly than a pre-stressed bridge. So that's why pre-stressed beams are kind of the go-to.
All right, other questions for Lowell?
Do we have a time frame when we would be revisiting this topic again?
Lowell, what's your time frame to get us a signed report?
I mean, I think the only action item for me is to look at that one cost opinion. I mean, I can do the report is complete except for that one action item I have left. So I could, within a week or two, I could have you the final report.
So we could have a Patrick Township, we could have a follow-up after that.
And you said, John, we were gonna do some detective work on the Waverly Bridge to see what the basis of comparison is.
Let's answer that question.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, thank you all for being with us tonight.
All right. Well, thank you for your time.
All right, so that, like John said, when we get that report, then we'll put it back on another work session and continue discussion. All right. Monoform manhole rehab. Tony's here.
Well, this is a little more cut and dry, and I think that is a process you guys have all been through before. We had budgeted 60,000 in the sewer budget for this. John and I discussed on the list that we put together, we decided that manhole 64 we're probably gonna take out because that will be part of the railroad crossing project when the time comes. So that alone will drop us below the budget number that we had. Also, in addition to that, if you notice, the fifth one down is actually a storm drain, so that would come out of the stormwater budget anyway. So that will put us well within our budget during this project. And we did try to lump them together in service areas, so the efficiencies of getting it done are there. Second Avenue and Gilbert. Gilbert, of course, is getting ready for the Gilbert Street project, so that's where our focus was, and so that is what it is.
And you said, how many we try to do? This is an annual thing we do. I think it's good.
This is something we do every year. Yeah.
Try to do 5 to 6 a
Yeah.
year.
And Don's actually done enough, that he kind of has a vague idea of the amounts each one, so he kind of knows about how many he can get. And we were a little bit over on this one, but that one was a logical one to cut, so.
Okay.
And I did contact the company, and they were fine with cutting that one out. They're gonna send me a new proposal to make it clean, but they were fine with that.
Any other questions? Like your AIS says, this is a good way to do this.
Yeah, but, yeah, it's a great process, and it's one that just stands the test of time. There's been other methods that they've tried, lining and fiberglass and stuff, and that's a harsh environment, and they just don't hold up. One of them that's on the list that's up on Cottage is actually, it's what they call a starter hole, where the several services dump into the manhole, which is not a really good practice. Don't typically like to dump into a manhole. You'd rather go into the line and allow it to go with the flow. Everything stays in suspension and gets out. This particular manhole, first time the guy showed it to me, they clean it about twice a year because the solids collect. And talk about a bad environment. Rust in that thing is just awful. So we're gonna line it, put some channels in and try to get the water and everything to go away like it's supposed to. So that's the only one that's kind of outside the area, but it was so bad, just, we gotta do that, so.
Would you happen to know the age of that one?
I don't, but it's gotta be. It's gotta be. the condition of the walls and such are remarkably good, knowing the environment, but it has no bottom. And that's what the problem is. So.
Alright. So this will come on our next meeting to approve.
Okay.
I'm assuming.
All right, very good.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
John, up next for recommendation from P and Z to rezone the Shaw Avenue site.
Yes, so we talked about this when we received our EPA 5-year report. This was one of the action items the EPA wanted. And because this is a Superfund site, they have some directing capabilities. And what this is doing right now, what this is that small, narrow strip, so along the between the Charlie Western Trail and Shaw Avenue.
Where the
And-
horseshoe park is.
Yes, so it's currently zoned R2, which would allow residential, and the EPA wants everything in that area is rezoned that it doesn't allow any type of residential use. And what we looked at was in our UDO, basically it's the only options are the M districts in M1 or M2. So the city council voted to, they approved a city initiated rezoning, sent it to P and Z. P and Z, they have gone through everything and they're making a recommendation to rezone this as M1. And so, sorry,
No.
basically, you know, it's really kind of, I don't wanna say we have to, but I mean, in essence. So, and really it's not, you know, we don't want residential use out there anyway, and because of the shape of the lot, highly unlikely it's ever gonna be developed anyway. So we'd recommend to follow the P and Z's recommendation.
Does the M1 allow for the horseshoe park to be maintained there, to stay there? Or would it have to be relocated? Or if a different type of park were to go in, if, you know, if somebody said, let's put, I don't know, something else, some other park there, could that go there in the M1, or would that be restricted as well? Just park space, nothing.
Well, it'd probably be currently might be restricted, but also I've had a conversation with Tyler
Mhm.
Mitchell and the parks, you know, their master plan is to actually, they wanna not do anything with this property. They want, I guess the use on the horseshoe pits has really gone down and that they wanna go in a different direction, so that's, sounds like that won't be an issue.
However, Phoebe and I have been at those meetings and there is discussion of doing something else. Number one, there's somebody who wants to restore the horseshoe pits. At least a portion, probably not all 16 or however many there are there today, but maybe 4. And there also have been some discussions of, could that be a skate park? Could it be a splash pad? Those discussions have also happened at the Park and Rec Master Planning
Just to have.
discussion. So would those things even be possible?
I would say at that point in time, because also, now Tyler had mentioned, you know, possibly some type of trailhead, you know, parking. That was one thing he mentioned to me, and parking, obviously, that would be a permitted use. Also, one thing it would be is, as we move towards that, and if that's going to be the, you know, the end use of it, would be looking at, just amending the UDO.
Would that be something you'd have to get permission from the
No,
people?
no, because what the EPA report was residential use. They want to do away with residential use.
But they don't care if we dig in the ground for a park structure.
That would be a GHD, you know, the
Yeah,
environmental engineering. I know as you get farther into the depth, you don't want to disturb that cap. But also at the same time, and we redid that, the wharf project and we're,
Mhm.
you know, in that area, the real Shaw Avenue dump is back behind, you know, the fence area.
Mhm.
this is outside the area.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I don't know, again, I don't know if they have any plans, or I don't know if they don't have potential plans at some point.
Yeah.
But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it,
Exactly.
Yeah, that was,
whether it's new or rehabilitated.
Right.
That'll be a cheaper bridge, I'm sure.
yeah, so so that's just an update on this, and what we do is have a, you know, be on an action item in the next council meeting. To basically, sorry, you know, P and Z held public hearing. And the council has to hold a public hearing, so that basically the next action item, all it is setting a date of public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'd set that for the 15th, correct, the next
Yeah.
regular meeting after the 3rd, it would be the 15th.
Okay. Anything else on that item? Right. Next up is rate increase request from LJP Waste Solutions. Who's gonna take this one?
I can go ahead and do that. So, on Friday, I received the rate increase request from, we're just gonna call it General because that's still how they kind of do business. So, from General, they're asking for a 2.62 CPI increase. I based it just on how it was last year or 2024, how you guys did it. Most of the rate increases went to the larger users, like the 65 and 95 gallons. So, yeah, if you can see in the chart here, I applied the increase evenly by container and then by gallon. And that's how it equaled out the price per gallon to the $16 for 35 gallon. $22.05 for 65 gallon or $28.50 for the 95 gallon. And that's just a proposed based on how it was done last year as well, so. This is obviously not set in stone, but that it would give a 30-cent increase to the 35 gallon. 60 cents to the 65 and 95 cents to the 95, you know.
So the good news is the rate stayed the same from last year, pretty
It's,
2
yeah, with the 2.62, it's not a huge increase. I mean, it's still an increase.
Right.
But it's definitely not huge, because looking back, I mean, you guys have seen over 7% before, more than that, so,
A lot of times those were due to increased costs that they had, like at the
yes.
landfill and
Tipping
everything like
fees,
that.
all of that.
None of that's included in this one.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they have those increased costs.
Yeah, it's solely based on the CPI.
Yeah.
So,
So we always have the same discussion every year, so I guess for Philip and Phoebe. I think one year we put it on the largest one year we split it out like she has it, so we kind of altered every year. I'm good the way she's presenting it, I just want to get your guys' thoughts on
Yeah,
it.
but the last two changes were evenly balanced.
Yeah,
Price per gallon
Yeah.
rather than price
Yeah,
per customer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I always feel like it's kind of just 6 of one, half dozen of the other, we're all getting an increase. It's. You know, the difference between each bin size is. Not massive, I mean, nobody likes to see any increase, but I'm fine either way, if we wanna. Make the price per gallon increase the same, the yellow one, that's fine. Doesn't matter to me, honestly, like.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, that's what
More
we've
sense
done.
to pay by the gallon.
That's what we've done previously.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes,
I think just
that.
keeping it consistent is to be the
Consistent
most
across.
important thing, so that everybody kind of knows, and then if somebody does say, well, I probably don't need that 95 because I don't like having,
Exactly.
you know, a slightly higher percentage, then they know if they switch down there, if we just keep that consistent, that they'll always have a slightly lower increase than if they have the biggest bin, so it helps
They don't
That's
get
it.
charged, so if I'm at the highest one, say, hey, I'm not really putting that much garbage out anymore, cause my kids went to college now, and do they get billed? Or is it one time a year you can get a different one?
I think you can switch out at any time. We do that quite often, or I see the requests come through quite often that most of the time it's they wanna go up, not down, but sometimes, if, yeah, somebody moves out or,
Mhm.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think you can do that anytime.
Mhm.
And Brittany, just so people know, if they wanna change their bin, do they call City Hall or LG or general?
They call City Hall and then we put that through to general. We make that request. Sometimes it takes 2, 3, 4 days or up to a week depending, but yeah, then we change it on our end.
And that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody knows.
Yes.
All right, any more comments here? Brittany, I think you're probably gonna do the city administrator search update also, if you've been
Yeah,
contacted.
it's just short and sweet. We do have 6 applicants now, up from the 4 last week. We're still on schedule to, applications are due September 3rd. We'll meet September 8th. You guys will decide who you wanna interview, and then those interviews will take place Wednesday, September 10th via Zoom. And I can send you guys out the schedule again, so you have that. I was gonna email that to you, so you have that all updated. But, I was gonna bring this up later, but we might as well talk about it now. The September 8th meeting, the Zastra room was already booked when this was decided back in July. So we will meet at the courthouse in their conference room. So, it'll be that, yeah, the same night, but just at the courthouse. And I'll send you guys out reminders and do all of that. And I let, Hinton Consulting know already that it would be.
You also might wanna think about, I'm willing to do as little or as much as you want me to do in that process, so you might wanna think about that. How much involvement you want me to have in that.
One thing about the LAC in the courthouse, after 4:30, the doors lock.
Yeah, they have already programmed it, they said for that day, to that it's gonna open at 5, so I can get in at 5 and then it'll stay open till, I said 9, should be plenty, but yeah, I hope.
Yeah.
Was, yes, we got a program for you, got there. it
Not
was a
program. Well, yeah, I told Morgan that I would meet her there, and I'm gonna go next week just to make sure that the owls work with our Zoom and do all of that ahead of time, so we don't have any. Hopefully not gonna have any issues that way as well, so.
I know we have our area development corporation meetings there. And I know Jason Webster gets all of the Zoom things going for that group. He comes early and gets, make sure everything is working there, so you might talk to Jason also.
Okay.
Cause that's it, that's the emergency operations center, which is kind of his room as the emergency management guy, so. Yeah, just make sure that he knows we're coming so that he can make sure that everything is working, Zoom and Owl and all that stuff.
Okay. Can do that.
All right. Still on Brittany, G-Works.
Okay, so I wanted to bring this to your guys' attention. I know, Keith had emailed Patrick about it as well, about the fees for, the front desk. So there is an ACH fee now that I know, I had brought up previously, but, and it was also in the contract that was signed in February as well. But I kind of want you guys to discuss it and decide, if that's okay going forward, if you wanna, it's a $1.30, $1.95-ish is what we've been seeing on the ones that have come through so far. I did some figuring today, based off the ACH customers that were in place on August 1st, we have 918 on ACH, which is automatic withdrawal out of a checking or savings account. Only checking your savings. Out of the 918, 877 of their bills were under the $150. So they were at $1.30 fee. 41 of those were over that at the $1.95, which is about $1,220.05 per month on average, obviously. I mean, we're gonna see some stay on, some fall off, all of that. But yeah, if you guys were looking to possibly absorb that fee, you'd be looking at about 14,640-ish. And it could be more, it could be less, but I just wanted to kind of give you guys some numbers to base your discussion on tonight, so.
I guess the way, my first thought when I looked at this is that nobody likes fees, but the reality is that. As we don't have an unlimited budget, anytime we absorb fees, we end up having to collect them in some other way. You know, I mean, we can't continually year over year. Always expect to have money in the budget to pay those fees as a courtesy. I would like to. I feel like we always really budget right down to the nitty gritty in a way.
Going along with that, if you absorb these fees, then the next fees you're gonna absorb are the debit card uses, which is twice as much.
Yeah, we've seen a couple come through just in the last couple of days at like $12 and $14, or depending on past due bills and all that, it all adds up, and they go to pay with a credit card. And yeah, they see that higher. So, and we've always passed on, or it's not even necessarily to call it a pass on, it's charged directly from Forte now over the counter. And they pay a $2 fee over the counter to use a debit or credit card in the office. And that only goes up to, they have a $300 max on that. So if it's over that, it's gotta be 2 swipes for $4 or whatever.
The thing, since this is a water and sewer, they're enterprise funds, which they're self-supporting by rates. So if we did absorb it, it would just come, they'd pay it in the rates. Next time we did a rate study and we saw we were losing 14,000, we'd raise the rates to gain that 14,000.
Yeah.
And people will be paying it, not knowing they're paying it. Now they know they're paying it and they're not real happy, but no matter how you look at it, they're gonna pay it.
And I mean, right now, we can create that batch file and send that to the bank, and it's technically free. I mean, I know we're paying for it somewhere through the bank, but we don't have a charge for it. But yeah, as soon as that's all switched over in the next couple months, we can't create that batch file anymore to send that. So that's why they all have to move over to front desk eventually.
And I also think the reality is that transactional fees exist everywhere that we are purchasing things, and we are just often unaware of them. I mean, I'm looking at a food truck across the bridge and I'm thinking about all the times where I knew if I paid with my card versus cash, I was going to pay more because they were going to I was gonna absorb that transactional fee. And I think that there's plenty of businesses as well. It's just factored into the cost of everything that you're purchasing there, whether you're aware of it or not.
The cost of everything.
It's just, we're clearly spelling it out so they know what the fees are up front. And when you go to Hy-Vee or Walmart or somewhere, you're not seeing that transactional fee. It's built into everything else you're purchasing, because it has to exist for them too,
And there are multiple free ways to pay as well. I mean, they can do bank pay through their bank. Most of those are free. But I mean, there's a cost for your check and your stamp and your envelope and stuff too. So that all needs to be kind of factored in. So, but it's, I just wanted to bring this to you. And we have had a lot, I mean, we have had complaints quite a bit.
Sure.
And there's all kinds of just, getting this said and done. And then we find out Monday, I think it was, or yesterday, that if they're currently on ACH and they've created a front desk account, it wipes their ACH. So right now we're going through the list of everyone who has created a front desk account and going back and inactivating their front desk account to activate their ACH again until we can go. So it's created quite a lot of extra work in the office, just the whole unknowns and everything. So, and then I didn't see it, but the community chat as well was blowing up, I guess, and that created a whole flood of front desk, people getting on front desk as well, which is great. We have about 274 on it already in the past week, so I mean, that's great to see. And people that are on it, or we've had a couple call and they're like, we actually like this, like, we can pull up a PDF of our bill. We can get an email or a text message when it's ready, all of that stuff. So we've gotten a couple compliments to out the negativity towards this, so.
But I think to Phoebe's point though, too, the citizen has to make a conscious decision. I'm okay with this fee. I have a checkbook that I don't write too many checks on. I can write a check. And I don't even have to put a stamp on it. We have a Dropbox out front, which costs nothing. So other than me writing the
Yeah.
check.
Check in time and all of that,
Yeah.
so it's just, everyone kind of needs to weigh their options. And I, like I said, I wish we didn't have to do this, I don't like to have to charge for something that's been a free service, but.
Yeah, absolutely, I mean, but it's gonna. The rate would eventually go up.
Yeah, and like we've been telling people too, we don't see this fee, we're not like hoarding this or something else. I would have to go in and pull a report to even see what they're paying for fees. It's directly goes to front desk. We don't write them a check later or anything like that. So.
But I'm not a fan of absorbing 14,000 or adding 14,000 as Dan put to the sewer rates. To go up to cover what we're absorbing. Let the citizen make a decision how they want to pay and then be done with it.
And I think wording it just like that it's not that we're absorbing 14,000 so that people don't have to pay fees. We are adding 14,000 to the sewer rates in order to keep that balance
If we
where
were
it
to
needs
go
to
that
be
route.
if we were to go that route. And so,
Doesn't sound.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think when people hear it that way, then they realize, oh, that money is coming out somewhere.
Yeah, and the few that I talked to today on the phone, I said, this is a rate-based service. I'm like, this, just so you know, I'm like, we could absorb those, but that you would see it on the back end somewhere with a rate increase later or something else. And it's not fair to make, this citizen over here pay more because this one wants to use their checking, savings, credit, debit, whatever. I mean, it's just.
I mean, like I said, it's just a fact of life now. You're gonna pay fees, processing fees, convenience fees, whatever you wanna call. Or you're gonna pay them in every transaction that you do now, pretty much. So, like I said, if you don't feel averse to paying those fees, you can, like I said, you can come up and put it in the Dropbox. But you're still paying a fee at that point too, because you're paying, spending gas or whatever you need to do our time to make that transaction happen, all those checks that you gotta purchase. I'm not even sure what it costs to buy checks anymore, but I'm sure it's not $10 like it used to be for checks, I'm sure.
And most banks offer bank pay for
Yeah.
free.
Yeah.
I mean, you've gotta obviously type that amount in and
Exactly.
remember and it's not gonna be the same,
And
but
that's what I mean,
it's still.
and that's an
Yeah.
added convenience that you're getting with the ACH. You don't even have to think twice about it. But did I forget to pay my bill or anything? The 130, I'll pay that gladly because it's an added convenience.
Well, and I kind of looked, the decision we just made with Gendros, in a way, this is in line with that, because you said it doesn't seem fair to have somebody who's dropping their check at the Dropbox have to pay more in their water rates so that people don't have to pay this fee. We're kind of distributing it based on the consumer choice. If you're choosing to pay this way, then you're choosing to take on this fee. It's kind of the same way, if you have to have, or maybe are choosing to have a larger bin, when you look at it as an actual percentage by container, it's more, right? So I think that the choice to not take on those costs is also in line with the choice that we continuously make with something as simple as garbage too, as garbage rates. So to me, it feels consistent.
And I appreciate the detailed analysis. That was excellent. How you did gather the numbers up and broke it down for us. That was very, very helpful.
Yeah, well, cause I just wanted you all to know exactly. I mean, it's obviously just an estimate, but it could be significant, so.
Well, it's out there and people aren't happy, but.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But just to be free now costs something, even if it's only $1. All right, anything else on that topic? Next up, we have the District Forester Reforestation Program. Brittany, did you receive this letter? Did I receive the letter? Did
Yeah, it
you
just,
forward it to me? How did I get it? Did you receive it, and gave it to me, or did I receive it?
well, they brought it into the office and I said, give it to the mayor.
I talked to this guy, and I don't think he was asking us for a specific amount.
Right.
He wants to go around and fundraise and wants us to know about it. I'm sure he would like the city to
Right.
put some into that, but he didn't tell me amount or anything. He just said he was gonna be around town, and he's done it over past years, and this was a continuation of what they've done in the past.
Yeah.
That's what it says at the bottom, you know, so your business or organization or donor, if you wanna donate 1 tree, if you wanna donate 2 trees, 6 trees, whatever.
Yeah. I think Greg's done a great job with the reforestation efforts and his work with the high school ag class and other local groups to get all of those planted. I think he's got a phenomenal plan and really to diversify our canopy as well. So I love that he wants to, you know, keep after it after our initial push. Is that just last spring? No, two spring, it feels like
The
yesterday
Rotary
and
did
also,
2 years ago.
yeah, I'm gonna say it's been more than just last spring, so. Cause we had a nice big push then and I love that he wants to kind of keep that ball rolling and keep getting more trees in. You know, and I also appreciate that at 10 to 12 or 10 to 20 trees a year, it'll be kind of a manageable number for people to care for, and then it also. Ensures that the age of our canopy is nicely spread out over time, so that we don't have. You know, cause when you have a bunch of trees all planted at the same time, then might start to have problems with some of them at the same time, especially if they're all the same, but he's diversifying that too, so
Diversified.
he's just an excellent resource. I really appreciate what Greg's doing, so. Go for it.
So the question would, I mean, I also am gonna visit with him though, because I think if you give someone a tree and plant it, you've done your work. You don't have to be coming back for 2 years and watering that tree. That's where that's where it got to be a real pain for the Rotaries. It's okay to go out and plant them, but now they had to go out every, you know, this summer would not have been bad. Last summer was terrible. They were always going out and watering those trees. If you're getting a free tree on your property, you should be able to water that yourself. And I don't know how much that would cut down on the cost of the tree of the $250. If that cost of coming back and watering for 2 years is a big expense, or if it's no expense, I don't know, but
Yeah.
it would sure be less work to make the homeowner who's getting a free tree, you take care of it.
Yeah, and I think that there's some ways to do that, because he clearly wants to work with, the VOGAG program out at the high school, and I appreciate that, but I also think if you hand it off to the homeowner, that's where VOGAG can come in and say, for each tree we plant, we will produce a species specific brochure, letting the homeowner know, like, for the next 2 years, here's kind of how you have to care for this tree. And so then it brings in that educational component that maybe he's trying to reach out and grab, and that's an opportunity I see as a teacher as well, to still have that in there without that long-term commitment
Yeah,
as well.
give them the information, but don't
Yeah.
provide the labor.
So. No, I think that's a good discussion to have. Will that bring down the per tree cost?
Yeah, and so then the question becomes, do we want to participate financially in this endeavor?
I mean, that's.
And at what level?
As
As a city?
I would say no. I mean,
It's our property.
we made a decision a couple of years ago to not fund outside agencies.
This is, we're planting a tree on our property.
Yeah, I agree, I understand that, but.
I mean, not just, that's the difference.
We just put a big amount of money into disposing of a lot of trees. I think we maybe need to put a little bit more space into it before and see whether or not we can get the volunteer organizations, give them a little bit more time before we start to invest, you know, if the need, maybe 5 years down the line, if we see there's no movement and there is a need for the tree canopy, at that point, I would maybe go back to revisit it, but I don't think we need to do anything with it right now. I think money is too tight to put anything else into any other optional or aesthetic types of funds at this moment.
I'd be curious to know, I mean, he mentions that grant funding is getting harder and harder to get, so I think that if there are grants that the city could help acquire either through, you know, in some way, working with them, I think that would be a great way to partner. Otherwise, I think we'd probably have to wait until budget season to really even seriously consider how to do it, to just look at like what's here, because you're right, I mean, it's in the right of way. But I think it would have to be a discussion at budget season, so at this point, you know, it might be just have to seek out other sources, but.
I agree with you guys. I like the idea of making sure we have adequate canopy. If you drive around town, they're in the right of way, there are a lot of blank areas where it's just grass. And you could do that, but since it is gonna be September 1st, we're gonna be heading into budget season after the first of the year. I got some concerns on how the state legislature and their flat tax or 2%, how that's gonna trickle down to us in what we are already strained.
Exactly. I mean, the building.
Finished 17,000 to the good the year before. I think we were at 0 last year.
Yeah.
We were actually 25,000 to the good, and we gave to the library because that was the year that
Exactly.
the state legislature said, "Oh, you can no longer have a library tax, even though your citizens passed it."
Yeah, I think budget season is the time for that discussion. I will say trees might be viewed as aesthetic. I view them as so much more, because when we increase our canopy, we really are decreasing like the heat impacts in our hotter summers. And so it has a benefit to our citizens as well in their overall health. We know that when cities and urban areas get hotter, health decreases, and home cooling costs increase as well. So it could be viewed as an investment by the city, or also by anyone who is choosing to donate as well. So, you know, that's just kind of my 2 cents that I'll throw in there, and you'll probably hear me harp on that environmental bit again when we get to it. But yeah, I would say for now, I think the city being financially involved will be a budget discussion later on, so.
And don't get me wrong, I don't disagree with
Yeah.
what you're saying as far as, but we have tough
It's tight,
decisions
yeah,
to
budget
make,
tight.
and sometimes
No, I
like I
don't.
said, we have a tough decision right now. Well, if it goes to donating $5,000 to plant trees, or donating $5,000 to the library so they can get some of the things done that they need to do.
Yeah.
You know, in between those two decisions, the library is gonna win.
Mhm.
And like I said, we could just, if somebody wants a tree out in the right of way, we can reach out to them directly, or we can even share this flyer,
Mhm.
or maybe get them their information if there is an issue. But I think right now, yeah, we need to leave this more so as a donation fund for the citizens to help, and maybe even like you said, the Lions Club or the Rotary. Let those guys kind of help us out as much as they can on that. You know, until we know where we're firmly standing. Because like I said, we don't know from year to year what's gonna happen with the budget. And I'd hate to commit to something like this and then all of a sudden the ground falls out from under us. And we have to make some tough decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I think we know, I'm give Greg a call and just kind of, explain some things we've talked about, that meant, and I know I just a month or so, I got a tree thing from the Canadian National Railroad. It says, if you have Canadian National for your community, we have funds to help certain things, so not
Yeah.
necessarily just trees, but so that maybe is another thing for him to explore.
Yeah.
All right. Dan, any administrative report tonight?
Sure, last time you said something about the middle school project, so I sent Richard over there and he sniffed around and found out that there's been one guy working and he's been plugging away pretty much every day, but one guy gets done what one guy gets done. That's not much.
No.
But the way building permits work, if they're working and making progress, there isn't much we can do about it to speed it up, and it sounds like to him that maybe even his boss doesn't communicate with him very much either, so, we're not alone, he's trying to get more material so he can keep putting the studs up, and so.
Pretty sad.
If you have other projects you want me to look at, I will. But that one was fairly easy to send Richard over there to talk to the guy. The guy was very open and said if anybody wanted to come and look around, just let him know and he would take you through and show it to you.
You're more familiar with Debbie Durham and that group. Is there an expiration what Sean Fauci gets?
That I don't know.
Yeah.
If there's an expiration on those tax credits, I
Yeah.
would assume there probably is, but it's probably like multiple, like a 5-year type, I doubt if it's like a 1-year thing.
Yeah.
It's probably, but I would assume that you have to use those in a certain amount of time.
Mhm.
I can do a little research to see if I can't find out.
That'd be good. Anything else, Dan?
No,
John, Brittany? John?
We're working on the forgivable loan agreement with Curb Tender right now and the business incentive program that will be with the chamber. Amy with Dorsey is working with Dean and Dan and I on all of that. So the agreements I just received those today. We do have some changes to make to them before we'll bring them to you guys on the 3rd to review. And hoping for final approval on all of that.
Bring it to them for review on the 8th. Right,
Well, we'll probably review on the 3rd as well,
at the council
at the
meeting.
council meeting,
Okay.
because we don't have an actual planning session till like the 24th
did
or
we say-
27th of September.
Cause that 8th meeting will be pretty short if all we're doing is looking at who we wanna interview.
Well, we have the railroad as well.
That was it.
That's why I wanted to have.
Okay, I knew we were talking about something
Yeah.
else on that day.
What else
are we
talking about?
We'll have a railroad
Sure.
discussion,
Right.
on the 8th. So, and that's would you guys like to have that 8th meeting start a little bit early? Earlier than 6, or are you okay with 6 o'clock railroad and then Hinson after that? I just wasn't sure how long the railroad would take. So, it's up to you guys.
Let me visit with the Connects first.
Okay,
then we'll-
I thought I'd put it on the 3rd,
Yeah.
to talk about, but I just wanted to give you a heads up tonight about that.
Yeah.
So, and then we already talked that the, September 8th meeting will be held at the courthouse. September 10th again will be the Zoom interviews from who you choose on the 8th. And that's pretty much it that I've got. I mean, you all know everything that's kind of going on with front desk and all that, but if you have anything else, yeah, always shoot me an email with questions or anything.
Hey, Brittany, I have a
No.
question for you.
Yeah.
Is there any way we can get resumes before the 8th to look them over before that meeting?
I'll ask him if he's gonna send those out right after the 3rd or not. I've been in contact with him, but he hasn't really given me much for detail, so I'll request that. So, because that would be nice, by
Yeah.
like the 4th or the 5th, you could have those to review for the weekend before the 8th. So,
That's gonna be a really
definitely,
good idea.
yeah. I will get with, Brent tomorrow and, let you guys know right away.
Did mention earlier, John and Chief Anderson, Brittany and Dan and I toured City Hall today. They're making pretty good progress over there. They say the wall will start going up in the next
Month at the
month.
latest,
Yeah.
2 to 4 weeks-ish, kind of the.
With hopefully, and then hope they plan to still get all the outside work done, even like seeding and stuff like that before winter. They're, that's a little tentative, again, depending on weather, they're a little bit behind, their projected finish date is the end of April. So they're a little bit behind, but not much, and most of that is just when they can't get stuff in here when it's so muddy.
Yeah.
You can't get into the trenches and things like that. Anything else, John, to report on that?
No, but the completion date, the substantial completion, basically beginning of May, but then there's some time period in there for punch list. So actual move in, I mean, like, you know, the police department would be down on Beck and 507 Clark, probably through the end of May.
Okay. Yeah, but actually, it looked like things were progressing well. There's a few change orders that'll be coming. Nothing, I think one was 6,000 and that was discussed today. That was a good expenditure, and one was a couple, $1,000 or $2,000, with no $50,000 change orders.
They poured a lot of concrete in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you guys get a chance to even just look out the window here, it looks a lot different. Yeah, so.
Exciting.
I would hope our surprises are done because we're done digging and we're down in the over, we've opened the overhead. There's nothing else to not see in the overhead, right?
that's right. Yeah, the big surprises that we hopefully are done. These are little like, oh, this line needs to move over here, instead of being over here, yeah. All right, any board commissioner committee reports tonight?
Parks and Rec met last week. The Zoom locked me out before we totally finished, but they were working on going over some suggested prioritization of projects from the master park planner and just kind of doing some reprioritization based on what they wanted. So that's coming together, some good discussion on, you know, what's needed and what the future of the parks look like. So I thought what I was there for went well.
Yeah. Had a lot of suggestions, and I don't know if you got the revised report from Tyler. He was gonna take all the suggestions and redo that target list that he sent out. He's gonna do, and I got that, so I don't know if you did or not, but yeah, he's gonna revise that list and change the, you know, some of them changed to they were low priorities, and no, that needs to be a high priority. Some was a long-term plan, no, that needs to be a medium-term plan. So just kind of fine tuning it so where they can get an official document that they'll bring to us at some point, hopefully in the next couple months.
Yeah, before budget season.
Yeah.
Foster grandparents, we met on Monday, had a board meeting on Monday. Hopefully everybody, all council members and everybody got your invitations to the appreciation program. That's just on September 12th. Yeah, we talked a lot about, you know, different type of marketing campaigns as far as recruiting as well as fundraising. And that pretty much took up the gist of the meeting was, you know, just brainstorming and trying to come up with different ways to recruit, you know, grandparents to get into the program, as well as different ideas and thoughts about how to fundraise in order to continue to, you know, to raise funds for the advisory also. And we also decided, since this is the 60th anniversary of the program, that all of the grandparents, they're going to give a $60 gift card. And, you know, we'll also have them sign a waiver that they don't want to use it for cigarettes or alcohol or anything. You know, we can't really control it totally, you know, it's up to the store to decide how they use it, but as long as we have them sign that waiver, you know, it kind of covers us as far as how they go about using it and everything. But yeah, that's what we got on the, you know, coming up, maybe a few bake sales and a few events that we may piggyback. We're looking to see, somebody spoke about they're supposed to be bringing back the Christmas parade. Have you heard anything about that?
Yes, definitely.
You know,
First Friday in December.
First Friday in December, okay, so, you know, maybe thinking about doing something, you know, maybe a chili supper or something right after that, something like that, so.
Rotary is already doing a
They are
food supper at the
already doing one.
KC Hall
On that same night?
on that
Okay.
night.
Okay, well, then maybe we'll give it those guys and they can, and
Awesome.
sell pies or something like.
Yeah,
You know, baked goods.
you know, Larry Pump,
Yes,
Larry's the president of Rotary, so maybe give him a call.
okay. But yeah, that's all we got. Jennifer's gonna be on leave of absence for just a little bit here, but she should be back. I can discuss that with you at a later time if you want to know about that. But yeah, that's all we got with the foster grandparents. You know, hopefully they've been promised the funding, so hopefully everything holds. And kind of just have to play, sounds like from year to year at this point, see whether or not, you know, we continue to have a foster grandparent program.
And I hope we do, it's good. program.
It is.
It's great.
Very-
Jennifer does it good.
Yeah.
The fundraising that you do doesn't pay for the program, it goes to like your appreciation
Yeah,
events.
it's
and things like
appreciation,
that.
yeah, it goes to the advisory board, not to the, doesn't. Pay for any of the stipends or anything for the program.
So I think some people wonder, well, why do you need to raise money if all that's being paid, but that's your extras that you do for your grandparents.
You know, and that also, yeah, that's also overhead, also for, you know, the overhead costs and also for, you know, for the staff and everything too. Some of that, you know, contributes to that, or if the director needs to go on maybe a trip or something up to DC to lobby or something like that. If, you know, it goes to cover those costs as well.
Anybody else? Seeing none, we will adjourn. Thank you all.